and telling you and telling you. And I said, turn it off, turn it off. And I started like poking at the buttons because it was annoying. I get annoyed really fast. And he's like, it's like retarded, it's emotional. I said, just turn around, turn around. And he's like, look, I don't even know where we're at. If I turn around, it started doing one-way streets and stuff. The roads are retarded. And I said, just turn around. He's like, it has a mind of its own. And I thought, a mind of its own. Now, who's the one really to blame for making a U-turn? Make a U-turn. Who's the one to blame for that? The GPS or my friend? My friend, right? Now, how retarded is he that he couldn't just make a U-turn? I mean, he was a typical guy. No, I'm just kidding. But I said, why can't you just make a U-turn? What's the deal? And he just kept saying, it has a mind of its own, a mind of its own. And I thought, God, he gives us a mind of our own, right? God gives us a mind of our own. I said, where did we make the mistake that we are like the people driving the car? We are driving our own bodies, right? All over this world, all over, everywhere, okay? And I said, Adam. Now if we go to Genesis chapter 2, we know, okay, we should know that Genesis, that Abraham was created by, I like people to talk with me when I'm speaking up here because I don't like doing this all by myself, guys. Come on now. We know that Genesis was created by who? By who? No, not Genesis. Adam. There you go. Adam was created by God. Okay. And when God created Adam, he started creating all these different animals, right? And God told him, go ahead and name all these animals. And God created this huge garden, and I can just imagine how beautiful it was with all the trees and the different flowers. And then he had all the animals that can come to you. The lions, you could actually pet them. The zebras, you could ride them and they wouldn't knock you off. And you could play with the cows. And God gave Adam this responsibility. It gave him a mind, right? But then God gave Adam who? Eve. Now Eve is crazy, right? Okay, so the Bible says, in chapter 2 it says that God created Adam, and Adam, named all the different animals. In chapter 3, it starts talking about how they were in the garden and the serpent came to Eve. Now, do we all know the story? Yeah, the serpent came to Eve and he's like, why aren't you eating from this tree, right? And Eve said, what did Eve say? God told us not to. Man, that's real good. Okay, so she said, no, God told us not to. But the serpent, he says, he just doesn't want you to know the truth, right? Okay, that's all good. And the Bible says, if you keep reading, I don't want to have to read it, but it says all this in chapter 3, around verse 5. It says that Eve looked at the tree. Can you imagine? I mean, I'm sure these apples weren't, these apples or the oranges, whatever fruits were on it, they weren't small little bitty nasty things. I mean, I'm sure they looked like a steak on the tree. I mean, I love steak. And it's oh man, that is good. You have to eat it. When you look at something, it's oh man. God gave her emotion too. So now they have a mind and they have emotion. But what had God told Adam before about the tree? Not to eat from it, right? Not to eat from it. So God gave them a mind. He gave them emotion. He gave them the right to think about moral disconduct. Okay? Now, since God had said, you can't do this, then it was morally wrong to eat from the tree, right? So he gave them the choice. But not only did he give them the choice, because they could have decided, I'm going to eat from that and not done anything. He gave them the ability to act on their will. Okay? So that's 4 different things that God gave us. God gave us a lot of stuff, okay? But I'm just going to talk about these 4 things. God gave us a mind. He gave us our own emotions, and He gave us the ability to choose a wrong thing and the right thing. He gave us the ability to act on whatever we decided. Okay? Do we understand it? I know that Adam and Eve is like elementary stuff, but man, sometimes we forget the elementary stuff and we just like go past it and we're like, you know what, that's not even important to me. But it is important to us because when Eve decided to eat the fruit, what happened?
She opened her eye.
She told Adam to eat it. And what did Adam do? He ate the fruit, right? He wasn't like, stop, you can't do that. You know, it looks so good. But God had given him so many more things, right? He went ahead and ate the fruit. Not only did this ruin their lives, because what happened after they ate the fruit? Their brains were just like changed, right? They understood that they were naked and they thought it was wrong. God never told them it was wrong or anything. I'm not saying to become naked like nudist people, because that's wrong. I mean, nobody wants to see that. But what I'm saying is that no, God didn't tell them that was wrong. What God told them not to do, they did it. And not only did they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, but all of us got cut off. We got cut off, right? And what happens after this Adam and Eve incident, you know? What happens to the people after this?
They start sinning.
Start sinning, right? Because when they... Hello? Okay. When they were in the Garden of Eden, I'm sure God, you know, He walked around with them and He was, you know, He talked with Adam. I mean, how cool would that have been? You know, not, you know, it was God Himself, just like with Adam walking around, and I'm like, man, how cool would it be to just not have to worry about anything and chill in a garden with God? Like, that was so cool. And I think, man, this guy ruined it for all of us. They both ruined it for all of us. I'm not saying it's just a guy, but it was you too.
Yes.
And He ruined it. He ruined it for all of us. And what happens throughout the Old Testament, I don't know if y'all are into that, but I love history, and the history of the Bible is super cool, or maybe to me it is. And what happens is that God gets a chosen people, and they're the Israelites, right? And these people keep going back and going and coming. And a lot of times, I think, man, we're like the Israelites. Me growing up in church, they always taught us, oh, the Israelites were always bad people. The Israelites were bad people, right? Has anybody grown up in church and they've told y'all that? No? Maybe? Okay. So I grew up in church and they told us, you know, the Israelites were just bad people. As I got older, I got a different teacher, and she explained to me that the Israelites were just confused about what they really wanted. Now, what I noticed is that they had gotten off on the wrong path and they had to make a U-turn, right? Now, they were going in this world and they had to make a U-turn. A U-turn back to what? To God, right? And the problem with these people is that they never realized how good they had it. I mean, they had God that protected them, and they watched over them. When people would come against them, on Wednesday I spoke about in 2 Corinthians chapter 20, I think, 2 Chronicles chapter 20, it talks about the Ammonites and the Moabites coming against the people of Israel, okay? And what happened is that King Jehoshaphat, he was a pretty good king for Israel most of the time. And what he did was that when he heard that these people were coming